Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about Thunderbolts. And this movie came out in 2025, and it's a new-ish Marvel movie that I missed while it was in theaters. The only Marvel movie I saw in theaters was Captain America: Brave New World, and that movie was not great in my opinion. And if you want to know what I have to say about it, I've reviewed it already, and I wasn't really interested in checking out the other two Marvel movies that came out this year. Thunderbolts being one of them, and the other one was Fantastic Four: First Steps. But people were saying, "Hey, Thunderbolts it's actually a good movie." Same with the Fantastic Four: First Steps. I was like, "Okay, I'll check them out." And saw this at Walmart, paid full price for it, decided to give it a chance, and I gotta say, this one is winning me back to the MCU because I've been pretty absent with this franchise for a while. Like, I've seen everything from Iron Man all the way up to Spider Man Far From Home, and with the exception of Spider Man No Way Home, everything from past Spider Man Far From Home and pre Deadpool and Wolverine. Everything in between, with the exception of Spider-Man No Way Home, I haven't seen yet. Because I just heard that was the decline of the MCU, and they started getting really bad and really boring and just nothing particularly special. And then they started making these TV shows that were connected to the MCU, and people didn't really connect with those all that much because there's just so many. And it just kind of hurt this franchise, and now I think they're really trying to like win their audience back by just like going back to movies, kind of going back to basics. It's like, okay, we're going back. Let's go back to the MCU that you all know and love, and let's try to bring you all back that way. And that's my impression with this movie, and it kind of sits in a weird, awkward space, in my opinion, because with the Thunderbolts, it has a cast of characters who, from memory, were never in any MCU film for the most part, pre Spider-Man Far From Home, with the exception of Winter Soldier. I don't remember these characters ever showing up. I'm kind of familiar with some of them showing up in certain movies, but most of them I'm not really familiar with. I don't think anyone really connects with these characters on their own outside of this movie, but I do feel as though this movie kind of had both free reign to do whatever it wanted, while also kind of being restricted to be a part of this universe. So what we wind up getting could be like a Frankenstein's monster of a movie where it's just a big mess, but somehow they managed to make it work, and they kind of take the Guardians of the Galaxy approach in a way where, okay, with these characters, we can kind of just do whatever we want with them and make it entertaining, and just like not to have to worry too much about them feeling like super accurate to how they maybe would be in the comics, or like overly familiar with the characters that already exist in this universe. Instead, it's just a bunch of characters who are just like a cast of nobodies in a sense, and they're just thrown in this situation. And instead of like, oh, we're building a team, well, let's all get together, it's more like, oh, we're all kind of going together in a group, and the name Thunderbolts is kind of just like a name that's just thrown at them. It's not really what they associate themselves with. And also, the reason why they're going in a group is because they're out to get revenge because of certain things that happened that I don't want to spoil. And in any other movie, you could say, okay, after this point, they can separate and go their separate ways, or you might expect if they do separate, then they'll just come back to it because the third act happens, and we all need them to come back in the third act. But instead, this movie always keeps them together, because every chance they have to escape or just go their other ways, we have bad guys trying to kill them. So they have to like stick together in order to survive. Like, they separating is just not an option, because if they separate, they're going to die. So they have to work as a team, and with them not knowing each other, they have like trust issues and all that kind of stuff. And I really love the character dynamics in this film. That's something that kept me going, and the performances were really good also. And the Thunderbolts characters were all entertaining characters, and I did like seeing Bucky Barnes return in this movie. He was a good character, and Sebastian Stan, like when he returns as a Winter Soldier, it was pretty cool to see him there. And I will say this much: when he did show up on screen on his motorcycle, without giving much away, just the way he looked and the way it was kind of presented reminded me heavily of Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And that kind of caught me off guard, but it didn't feel distracting to me. And I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're kind of doing here. And there's a couple moments where I was reminded of T2 and even Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines to a certain extent. And the action scenes in this movie were actually a lot of fun to watch, and it never felt boring to me. And I was entertained throughout this entire film. And this movie is 2 hours long, the perfect runtime, and the mid-credit scene and after-credit scene both exist in this film. The mid-credit scene is just for a gag, and after-credit scene, I'm not going to spoil, but it's there to do certain things. I'll say that much. And there were moments in this movie where the visual presentation was actually pretty nice. And there's one action scene kind of in between the middle and the third act that takes place where I thought it was pretty great, actually. And there was a nice long take, and it looked cool at the very least. I liked how that looked, and the visual effects looked pretty convincing. And I thought there was not a moment where I was really taken out of it from memory. And also, this movie didn't really rely too much on visual effects from memory. I felt as though there was a lot of practical action, and there are some moments where it's kind of cheesy and ridiculous, and you do have to suspend disbelief and just say, oh, it's just a comic book movie. It doesn't really matter all too much if things don't make the most sense, but sometimes you just are kind of questioning, okay, how does that work exactly? And there is a character in this movie where they introduce him in this movie, I believe. I don't think it was in any other MCU-related project, where I liked the character and I liked his design, but they don't really delve into his powers. And I'm torn on whether or not I should take off points for that, because on one hand, it would have been nice to know to have a better understanding of what's at stake here. But on the other hand, the way it was presented, keeping it vague and not really explaining it at all, which they don't really explain it at all, kind of makes it scarier and adds a certain level of, oh, this is like a real problem if things go wrong here. And they explore it to its logical extreme, and it honestly felt like a horror movie almost in the third act, the way things were presented. Like, I thought that was also handled very well. Like, it belongs in this movie for sure. But going back to that one character's powers, like, if you over-explained it, it could easily hurt the pacing for the film and also make the movie way too stupid. So I can understand why they wouldn't want to explore or explain the powers for that reason, at the very least. I did feel as though there were a couple moments sprinkled throughout the movie where the music wasn't bad in it. Nothing particularly special, but definitely better than the average MCU movie out there. And the comedy in this movie actually kind of worked for me. I wasn't really fully with it towards the beginning, like I usually am with every MCU film, but it started to win me over, and it surprisingly worked pretty well, unlike another movie that I saw earlier this year, taking place in the same universe. But I did have some issues with this movie, that being like the villain. I didn't feel as though it worked very well as their overall presence, and they were just more annoying than anything else, and just more of a mustache twirling villain. I was like, okay, we're doing this again, blah 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 blah, I don't care. And there were moments where the dialogue I thought was really weak at points and could have been improved, and there were some tiny moments where things just didn't really make sense to me. But most of the movie worked pretty well. I liked it a lot. I was surprised as to how much I enjoyed it. And a couple other things that I wanted to mention. There was a court scene that happened very early on in this movie, and I was just thinking of the Snyderverse DC films. There was a court scene in Batman v Superman, and it was just like really boring. And I was just imagining how boring it would be if this took place in that DC universe. But in this movie, they tried to make it more corny and enjoyable and light, and try not to take itself super seriously consistently. And I haven't really touched on this aspect about the movie, and that is this movie is sadly, in terms of a theatrical release, didn't make any money. It needed to gross like 500 million and only grossed just under 400, so not that great. And I guess I can understand why. We're kind of in an era where superhero movies were kind of tired of them, but I do feel as though we're at a point where if you want to keep doing that, you need to prove yourself and to get people excited and like actually set out to make a good movie, not just a setup movie or just like a film that heavily relies on you knowing what happened before for it to work. And this movie, I think, works pretty well as a standalone film, and that's part of the reason why I was able to enjoy it as much as I did. So definitely check this movie out whenever you get the chance. I thought it was really good, really enjoyable. Love to watch it again, and I don't really have much bad to say about it, and it's a very good movie. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Thunderbolts a 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos. As always, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below your thought of Thunderbolts and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.